Hello and welcome to Questions with Sir. One of my students asked me, Sir, what was the first flower? Well, first flower, it's hard to say, but we can get close to the answer. Angiosperms, as botanists call flowering plants, they appeared quite late in the evolution of plants. But it doesn't mean that it was yesterday. Flowering plants appeared about 130 million years ago. Just to put it in perspective, before flowers, there were sharks, there were dinosaurs, there were mammals, and there were insects. Well, we'll come back to the insects and plants. How the earth looked like before flowers. Well, coniferous trees and ferns were dominating the landscape in a time of dinosaurs. And they multiplied in a very simple fashion. Fern requires very damp surrounding and they multiply by sending spores around them. Coniferous trees, they are still around today, like pine trees, are multiplying by sending their pollen on the wind and hoping that it will get to another pine tree and create those little cones that we like to gather from the ground. And in those cones, they have tiny little seeds which will create a new pine tree. That is not a very efficient way, because you never know when the wind's going to blow or if it's going to blow far enough. So, flowering plants emerged. First flowering plants evolved during the dinosaur age. So, while dinosaurs were walking around ponds and marshes, those little plants were going out of the water and putting their leaves, which they created into little petals. They didn't look like flowers of today that you would bring home to a loved one. They were all green, but anatomically they were flowers. And they were waiting for insects to come and pick up the pollen of them and go to another flowering plant. Paleobotanists, as we call archaeologists who are digging up for ancient plants, found two species which were the oldest species that we know currently of. One is called Montsechia, and it is 130 million years old. And another is called Archefructus, which is 125 million years old. Those plants were, let's say, cousins of our water lilies. So these flowers started attracting insects, and those insects were going from plant to plant, actually eating their pollen, but on their way they dropped little crumbs around and managed to pollinate other plants of the same species. Plants started competing how to get more insects to pollinate their flowers. So, as we get ketchup on our hamburgers, they started adding a little sweet nectar around their pollen, and that's how we got bees to evolve. Scientists studied bees and found out that bees are actually vegetarian wasps. They evolved from wasps which were getting little insects into their nests, but those insects were already covered in pollen. They liked pollen and started eating more and more pollen and less insects, and then we got the bees. Bees are very important for all of our ecosystem because they are one of the most numerous pollinators in the world. Now, flowers have quite diverse strategies of getting those bees and other insects to pollinate them. Not just insects, even frogs and other species can pollinate different flowers. We have flowers which are colorless to our eyes but can be seen with bees' eyes because they emit ultraviolet light from the light they receive from the sun. So Flowers are quite an interesting subject. I hope you liked another episode of Questions with Sir. Keep the questions coming and see you on the next one. Bye!